Hey guys, and welcome back to a watch collector channel. Now, when most of us start looking for a new watch, typically that adventure starts on the internet, Instagram, Facebook, I don't know, take your pick. But when you really start to hone in on that, chances are you're looking for reviews of your watch. There's no doubt that reviews are landing you a few places, either here on YouTube, but if other than YouTube, chances are you've landed on a blog to watch or Worn and Wound. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with Zach and Blake, the founders of Worn and Wound. Blake works a little bit more behind the scenes, and although you might not instantly recognize Zach, chances are you will definitely recognize the sound of his voice. So while I keep working on this watch mod, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, check the link to the video that's showing up above now or linked up in the video description to get up to date on what I'm working on. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe for more watch content for all watch lovers. So while I finish this up, enjoy my sit down with Zach and Blake from none other than Worn and Wound. That's coming up right after this. I'd really like to thank you guys for jumping on, agreeing to be on the show and do the interview.
Yeah, we appreciate being asked to do it. It's fun.
Yeah, we saw your coverage of the Windup fair. Just thanks again for that. You know, it took a lot of time and a lot of expense for you to get down there and do it. So we really appreciate that. That's awesome.
I wasn't sure at first logistically how it would work out. But as soon as a lot of people saw it, you know, the first question was, hey, are you going? Are you going? Are you taking your recording equipment? And I'm like, you know, it's more than just the car ride. So let me see if I can I can figure it out. And then, you know, yeah, absolutely, I'd be game. But I would like to start by asking the most obvious question, which is what you gentlemen are wearing on your wrists at the moment.
Sure.
Sure. I'll try. I'll start. See it. I have my Benrus Bullet on. So yeah, mid 1960s. Civilian model of the Benrus military watch 3061 that is supposedly worn by Steve McQueen in the film Bullets, though doesn't hold with it the Steve McQueen prices. So get it while it lasts, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm wearing a Nomos Orion 38 date today.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I just got this recently. Sold a few things to get it. So yeah, I love this watch. We had one in for review, and like we comment that like it's, you know, we love a lot of the watches we get, but oftentimes like it's rare that one sticks with you and you're like, okay, like that's an awesome watch. And for both of us was like, this was a watch that both of us at some point wanted to own.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that tends to be the case with Nomos. Is they're really nice, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen a couple of them in the flesh, and I'm like, it's always kind of hard to walk away without it.
Yeah. I bought one a few years ago. It was kind of like the first really nice watch I kind of probably picked up. I got a secondhand, really good deal, but it was just like it was like my baby for a while. So, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys have had the Worn and Wound website up since 2011. What can you kind of talk us through how it was born? How you go from just, hey, I like watches, you like watches. Yeah, let's make what's going to end up being, you know, one of the most visited websites.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I can sort of take a crack at it. Yeah, we were both, we were sort of in our mid-20s, had a little bit of extra time on our hands, one, which was important, but two, you know, I was sort of in a position where I wanted to pick up a watch, you know, with a few extra dollars I had, you know, like $300. I was like, what watch can I get? And Zach had been into watches since a little kid. Your dad's a collector.
Yeah, I grew up around watches, nothing crazy, but always had swatches on my wrist, various digital things. So I've never not worn a watch, you know?
Yeah. So when we went to go try to find sort of reviews and content on watches in that price category, we had a hard time finding stuff beyond the forums, which are awesome, but like there's so much info on the forums. It's not very well sort of like curated. And we just weren't finding content that sort of treated watches in that price category, you know, with really like HD photos, HD video, really in-depth reviews. And a lot of the watches we wanted, like I'm sure with you, like you can't actually get your hands on them most of the time. And that's sort of the idea with Windup, right? Like an event for watches that you can't usually get your hands on. So we were just like, well, let's just give it a try. Let's get some watches and just sort of start putting together a website.
It was really for fun too. I mean, there was no aspirations to build it into what is now both of our careers. Yeah, it was just a fun thing on the side. Like the idea of even getting a watch on loan from a brand was like really like, whoa, wouldn't it be crazy? Someday somebody sent us something, you know. And then, you know, it just kind of snowballed because people liked what we did and people were obviously hungry for it. And at the time, you know, it was a very different playing field in terms of the other websites and really the production value. So Like I come from a design background, photography, so it was very easy to create something kind of very polished looking for, but it was just us hanging out in the living room doing it.
Well, let me ask you, going from, so the original idea was website based. When was YouTube born in parallel with it, or is that, the channel and doing the video reviews, did that come a little bit later?
We the videos were very much like a part of the website and the reviews we were doing. I think at first we were putting stuff on Vimeo, but it just doesn't have nearly the same like sort of shareability and ability for stuff to get sort of passed around and get seen by as many people.
It came pretty soon. I mean, we knew once we started getting some traffic, we knew we had to have video reviews alongside of it. It was a challenge because photography, but not so much. We don't didn't know video. Now we have our employee Ilya, who is very talented in video. So they've gotten a lot better recently. But for a while, it was just us shooting kind of over the shoulder kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, that just grew. Once again, going along with the getting the sense of what a watch is like with your hands. Photos are great, words are great. Video just has that little bit of extra, three-dimensionality. You can see the curves and everything. I've gotten comments from people who lend us, watches or brands that they really like how we kind of get up close and examine them. It's really the watch is in focus.
And our videos are pretty robust. They
absolutely
tip like 13, 15 minutes, which for us like
20, 25. I could just talk forever. So
but I mean, like that's what we wanted when we were looking for watches. You can't always see these things in person, and a 30-second overview is great for sort of like quickly going through stuff. But for us, it's like, no, we want to really know what it's like to hold and feel and really get a sense of it. So that's why we've always maintained that sort of really in-depth video review content.
Now, you mentioned when you guys started up the whole concept of wouldn't it be cool if they would send us stuff to look at. So that kind of leads into one of my questions. Can you kind of talk us through what were some of the challenges when you go from I want to set up a website and having one that's as nicely and as logically laid out as yours is, to taking or figuring out what that next step is and building the relationships to get to that point where you can go to a brand. And I consider you guys king of micro brands, really, and say, hey, can you lend us a watch to do X, Y, and Z with, to where now I assume you guys have established relationships with most of those brands. But what was the road leading to that?
Yeah.
Bumpy. No, I mean, it was a lot of we did the work to kind of create this site. I mean, bought a lot of watches ourselves, but very inexpensive watches. I mean, Timexes, Seiko 5s, things like that, which are great, but just getting that content, being like, we're not just blindly asking for something with no, evidence that we put together good work. And then, a little bit of traffic and frankly, just the faith of a few brands that were willing to kind of dive in. So like early on, I think like Techne, Christopher Ward was probably the biggest brand to be like, when we really had nothing to show, like, sure, we'll lend you a watch. Then it went from there. And then I think furthering that, there were still big blockades of some of the larger brands like Swatch Group and stuff like that. That was Basel, like maybe 2 years in, I guess, whatever it was, like just threw down the money, went over to Basel. Bloggers were not very big. I mean, Hodinkee was there, Blog to Watch was there, a couple of the European sites, but it was not, like online was not really the thing there. Went there, got cold receptions from a lot of people, but we were friendly. And, a year later, they were all, open arms to us.
It's hard I think it's hard to fight with the numbers when you take a look at the traffic that you that you get on websites, your Instagram presence, YouTube. Quantitative is difficult to argue with quantitative values.
I think I would just add to Zach that I think we have really great relationships with brands now, and I think it's just, I wouldn't, you almost like don't blame the brands at first for being a little bit sort of like, well, I don't know who you are, I'm not going to send you my watch worth several $1,000s. So I think it's just building that trust over time, and like Zach was saying, going to Basel was sort of a big deal for us. But I think one of the things that we, it's kind of like the proof is in the pudding for us. I think for a lot of the brands that are sort of in the niche that we cover, I think once they get on the site and they see the traffic they get from us, or they sort of see the response from the readers, or they sort of learn where maybe people are learning about their watches, I think they begin to understand that like what we've built is a very niche audience of people that are really enthusiastic about these products. and they get the reason why they cost what they do and why they're made the way they are and the stories behind them, and they really care about them. So I think once that we kind of got over that hump of people understanding what we were all about, I think people got it, and people talk and all that kind of stuff. So brands started to know who we were.
Now, when you guys get a piece in for review, how long do you typically have it before you start to put together, the video review and then the written review?
There's no real set amount of time. Kind of depends on the brand, what else is in. Sometimes if we get 15 emails from brands, all they're like, hey, I want you to review our watch, and we think all 15 of them are cool, we'll be like, sure, send it. That's going to take a few months to get through. So sometimes watches sit around for a while, other times not. But I mean, the process sort of starts immediately. I mean, you get the watch, and I'm always kind of rotating them in and off. I don't show it every time I'm wearing them, but if I'm going out for a walk or whatever, I'll put one of the watches on. That's kind of where I start my thinking process about them all. It's just like looking at it on the street. How does it feel? So yeah, I mean, but hopefully I try to get them back within 2 months.
In the time that you guys have been doing this, have you ever slammed one, or has there ever been a watch where you're just like, I'm so not fond of it that I'd rather return it rather than make a video saying how I really feel about it?
Yeah, it's funny. It doesn't happen so much anymore, but we used to get people are like, you guys are too positive. Where's the really negative reviews? And we don't really ever want to do really negative reviews. I don't think that's really constructive or helpful, for people. Somebody put hard work into the watch somewhere, and they care about it. But there's kind of a barrier for entry. Everything kind of starts with kind of an aesthetic curation. So a lot of the stuff that really do not find visually appealing, that are or we don't put them on the site. So we don't kind of get to that point. We have received a couple watches in the past that didn't work the way they should have worked, had some manufacturing issues or whatever, and it kind of threw back and forth with the brands, decided just to not review them, just to send them back. It's a harder thing, it's a more intellectual thing to give constructive criticism when something's wrong, to provide, oh, I don't think this works, these are different ways it could have worked, maybe blah, blah, blah. And sometimes that might, that might actually help the brand make a better version in the future. They might fully ignore it because they like what they did, that's all fair, but it's, just being like, this is stupid, let's move on.
Well, it's kind of like I just watched your video yesterday, I think it was, of the Fortress, where you mentioned that it's very well put together and sound, but the one disappointment that you had was the crown, in addition to the loom, but that you had wished it was kind of a screw down crown because it felt right. And that's kind of one of those, it's a constructive way of saying, this might have been my preference, which may or may not be somebody else's. But it works well as it's laid out. So that was a great looking piece, by the way.
Thank you. Oh yeah, no, very cool watch. Very cool brand. We're excited to get to work with them now because they didn't have the greatest representation in the U.S. for a while, but now they're here and they're just one of those great sport watch brands, And it's very cool.
Yeah, they make beautiful watches. They did a little bit of a sort of rebranding or sort of rejiggering within the company, and that includes management and the actual watches themselves. And we've sort of seen that evolution over the last couple of years at Basel. And their line this year is so nice, and it's really exciting. They're going to be working with WatchWise now for American distribution. But
that's great.
Their pieces are awesome. That's exciting that they decided to they're paring down their lines. They're really focusing. They're doing all the right things.
So you mentioned one of the great things about the event, Windup New York, that you guys put together, is the opportunity to get in, especially with these micro brands that don't have boutiques, especially really here in the States, to get your hands on something to look at, get a little more face-to-face interaction with these micro brands. How long did it take you guys to put that event together, and how long was it in the planning? Is this something where you said 2 years ago, in 2015, we want to put this together?
Oh, we do not work nearly that far. We're much more impulsive. I mean, I think the idea had kind of floated around for years, but it was not anything feasible.
Yeah.
And then, we actually participate in some pop-up fleas and markets with our products that we make. We were at one last spring, and we left then just being literally we were in traffic in a cab being like, we got to do this.
Yeah.
Let's just do this. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Enough.
So actual planning for the last event, which was in October of last year, started later than today, relative dates. It was, we got it together very quickly. and things just lined up with that
Yeah.
space. I mean, you saw the space; it was really beautiful space. Just sort of lined up. It was very fortuitous for us.
That was kind of the first step. Once we found that there were spaces in New York City that weren't that were price wise actually functional. Then we're like, okay, we have to go with it. Just sign something really quickly.
Yeah.
Now, how receptive were the brands? When you said, "Hey, this is what we want to do," because I think Christopher Ward flew out from London.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe his wife was there.
She was there. The smaller the brand, the more receptive. There, because they immediately got it. They immediately got it. Like guys like from Gavox from Belgium, Awig from Netherlands. Yeah, I mean that's a very long trip for them too. But the value of being there was so immediate and obvious to them that they were totally into it. Some of the bigger brands, they just they have budgets they then have to work around.
When we started doing the event, we really focused on some of the smaller brands that we had really good partnerships with and that we knew it would be really sort of a special event for. And then word kind of got around to a few people, and we, like Oris is a partner of ours, like we work with them, and they came and we invited them. We were really excited to have them. But we weren't really planning on getting like Mula.
Yeah, you guys had what I would consider some micro brand juggernauts. Really, that was I was impressed and excited to see them there.
We just weren't planning on it because, again, like we said, we planned it so late. We're in the midst of planning the next event, and it'll be bigger, and it'll definitely just sort of continue that trend of lots of micro brands, but also some larger, more established brands. So yeah, it was just last year was really just all about a proof of concept, and this year is just really trying to blow out the event.
Now here's a follow-up question to that. And I know a lot of people are going to be wondering this because I got this question in emails and messages. Do you guys have any plans of taking a concept like that and doing it somewhere outside of New York?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely something we've talked a lot about. I think for us, the team Warren Wound is like us. We have a third business partner, James Helms, who lives in California. We have Ilya, who's in the office working on a video right now. This is the team, and we sort of very much have sort of learned as we go along. So last year was proof of concept, get an event under our belt. This year, we really want to make the event bigger and better and really great. And definitely in future years, we're going to look to take it elsewhere in some form or fashion, whether that's, larger events in other cities like Chicago and LA, or if that's, pop-up smaller events, that kind of a thing.
Miami, I'm just throwing it out there. Miami.
The reception's been really strong. Like in Basel this year, a lot of brands had either heard about it or in telling them about it, they got really excited. I think when you explain sort of the core concept behind it, right? The idea of an event that's free and open to the public, which a lot of watch events aren't, an event that features a very curated collection of brands that people don't usually get to see, which a lot of events aren't about that. And just you get to meet the owners. You can buy watches there. A lot of the brands there we're actually selling. That's very unique. And we did try to place it in Soho, which is a very sort of like hip shopping center of Manhattan. It's not the sort of stuffy Madison Avenue location where a lot of the watch events are. And that'll be the spirit of this year's event. I think when you explain that to people and like how many people came off the street at last year's event and be like, hey, what the hell is this? Like, this is a really cool event. Brands get it, and that's what they're looking for,
It's the same kind of years. Like now that we have the proof, we know the numbers that we can get in a kind of actually back side street, like not necessarily even the highest traffic spot. Like, it just kind of sells itself from I think for that, if we're going to spend $5,000-$10,000 to fly out there, enough people come. We know enough people will come now. The rest of it's just, a great experience and brand building. And, it's not just, we really want this we're trying to establish, is what I should say, like a new type of watch event. It's not just a fun, so that we want to open up the philosophy of Worn and Wound to the watch industry in a broader way, because these stuffy events, they're fine, but they're really for industry insiders. They're not very welcoming, and it's just a totally different thing. It's not. We don't think it's what watch culture really is about. At least under 10K or whatever. It's like it's community based. I mean, it's a lot of. Looking on Instagram, it's people socializing. It's not people protecting themselves and kind of
Yeah.
And I loved the forum that you guys did afterwards. I really wanted to attend that, but I literally my plane ticket was I was in New York for the day, for the afternoon to go to the event. So I wanted to sign up to go to the kind of Q&A that you guys hosted afterwards. And I was just like, next time I will plan better. It was just a great opportunity because a lot of these micro brands, you're not just talking to a sales rep when you're walking up to that booth. I mean, in most of those, with Autodromo, with Brew watches, you are talking to, the founders of these. And particularly Jonathan with Brew watches. I mean, I met him at your event, and I still talk to him now, Yeah, that's a kind of connection that you can't really get anywhere else outside, the great event that you guys put together. So
yeah, and I think, no, and again, thanks for coming. We're happy to get that feedback, because that's really that's what it's all about. And I think what we get to do, we know from knowing these brands, like we know the type of people like Bradley from Autodromo, or Jonathan from Brew, or Chase from Oak and Oscar, any of these guys. Like at that level, like starting a watch brand is a grind, and it takes a really creative person. It takes a really hardworking person. It takes the kind of person that like you can really respect to create a really strong watch brand. And I think meeting those people is always a good time, because they have a lot to say, because they've done a lot. They've sort of been through a lot to get that product off the ground. So, and it's exciting to see them grow and evolve. Like seeing, Autodromo, Bradley from Autodromo, go from launching his first watch to where he is now. Yeah. Probably producing some of the coolest stuff every year that we see. Jonathan from Brew. So it's just, it's great to meet these people, because they're very interesting people.
How many watches do each of you have personally, in light of the fact that you are constantly surrounded by temptation, right? I'm surrounded by temptation via the internet, but I don't get to, hold it all day and say, you know what, I think I'll keep it.
Yeah.
This is telling. I don't really have like a great count, but it's not that high either. You know what I mean? Like the watches that I've bought in the last, like probably under 10 watches I've really bought that I wear a lot. There's a lot of watches around that kind of feed in and out and whatever into that, because of all the ones that come in for review. Yeah. But yeah, I keep the actual Zach Weiss collection pretty trim, and I used to be much more frivolous. Actually, I haven't bought a watch in a little while now. Just kind of feel like I'm at a point where I want to save up for something really special, or buy something at a really meaningful time, because I bought these great watches maybe too frivolously at some point, and then I was kind of like, they didn't have like the attachment I really wanted to them. They were just beautiful objects, but then I was like, well, I got to flip that to get the next beautiful object.
Yeah.
But I like what I have now. I focus on vintage, focused on kind of everything I have has like a story behind it, whether it's from the movement or the designer or the brand. That's what I really like. So,
what's your favorite? What's the favorite one that you've got, Zach? What's your favorite current piece?
That's hard, but I probably have to go with my Hamilton Chronomatic.
That's a beautiful one.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a really lucky purchase. I frankly, I only knew a little bit about it when I saw it was for sale. It was at a good price. I offered the guy, like, not intentionally lowball him, but I was just like, this is what I have if you were interested. He came back after somebody else bailed out. Was like, sure, you can have it at that price. And then, it's rare, it's beautiful, it's got a, it has that funny little story. A lot of people, I mean, maybe now everyone's getting so educated now, but that before people would see it, be like, why is the crown on that side? You're like, oh, it has a caliber 11 movement in it. And like, but I thought that was a Hoyer thing or a Breitling thing. It's like, oh, well, let me tell you this story that's probably going to bore you about, and I like that a lot, but it is just gorgeous. So,
it's a beautiful, but I see that. That's one of the favorites that I see on Instagram.
Yeah. Everybody always, one day somebody's going to make you an offer you can't refuse on that watch.
What about you, Blake? How many watches are you shuffling around?
I'm down to like 5 now. Like Zach, I had picked up a few, but I really have tried to pare down. I'm also not as much into vintage. I don't really sort of trust myself like with the object necessarily. I'm not really at a point in my life where I think I can maintain a lot of vintage watches. And also, like Zach's the editor of the site, he's creative director, all that kind of stuff. I'm more like back of house finance stuff. So like I don't have as much of the knowledge as Zach and Ilya do. So I'm not really in a place where I want to sort of be buying vintage. I just don't have the knowledge for it yet. So yeah, I have 5. And what's my favorite? Trying to think. I'm liking the Nomos a lot that I just picked up, but
you're in a honeymoon. You're in a honeymoon phase with that one. Right?
Yeah. I have a Tudor sub 79090 from
nice.
that I really like. But honestly, like one of the watches, I got smitten with the Tudor Pelagos, the first gen one from seeing like collectors groups and stuff, and it was way out of my price range. And I just I couldn't stop looking at it. Every time it would pop up at a collector group, I had to pick it up and play with it. It's just there's something about that watch just, it stands out for me from everything Tudor's done. Frankly, it's my favorite recently.
Yeah, so.
And so I flipped a bunch of stuff to pick one up, and I wear that a ton. I really beat that thing up. I wear it all the time. So I would honestly, I might say the Tudor Pelagos is like my favorite.
Is your preference for it on the band or the bracelet?
Oh, well, since we make leather bands, I wear it on our straps a lot. The bracelet's great. It's a great bracelet. It's got that sort of like spring-loaded mechanism in the clasp, so like it fits really nicely. And the whole thing's titanium, so it's really right. It's really great. I just put on the bracelet yesterday. It's great for this kind of weather, this kind of hot summer weather. It's like, it's a good sport watch for that.
Now, what do you guys think are some of the most underrated micro brands? Kind of diamonds in the rough, or some undiscovered gems.
I mean, I from Windup, I love Apig. I think of the watches.
Oh yeah, the Valkyrie. That Valkyrie is gorgeous.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I would also just add, I don't know if he's too under the radar these days, but like Gavex, Michael from Gavox, they're great. He does a great job, and like
he's very innovative too. He he does stuff you really wouldn't think a brand that size would be able to. You know, I really like and nothing's really unheard of. It's something like De Facto. I mean, they've been around for a while. They've been around at least as long as
I had the De Facto Eins for a while. Yeah, beautiful piece.
What I like about them is like they're not for everybody. I mean, they're very kind of striking, minimal, bold watches, but they have an aesthetic that other people aren't playing with. And unlike a lot of things that are very kind of graphic and almost like more art side of things, they're still really good German-made watches with really good movement. And then like on a slightly larger scale, and this might just be because we have one in right now and I'm obsessed with it, but like Handheart is an awesome brand. And they're like a brand name I think people know, but they're not, in the last few years, going to all these collectors meetings and everything, they weren't really that present there. And from style, build, and value, I mean, there are very few brands that really even compare, I think, to what they're doing. Their watches, the mono pushers that are $2,500, $3,000. Obviously, it's not an inexpensive watch, but those, to me, easily compete with watches that are $8,000 to $10,000.
What if they got is that the mono pusher chronograph?
Yeah, they have.
What's the? Do you know what the movement of that is? Is that modified?
Heavily modified Valjoux 7750. They work with La Joux Perret, who's like a high-end movement manufacturer house. And it's not just there's some brands that will modify movement this way or that to just like I mean, it's no small thing, I think, probably converting it into a mono pusher, but they'll change little things too. Like the pusher doesn't come off exactly at 2. It's now a little bit higher. On some of their movements, they actually move the subdials out a little bit to be spaced better for the diameter of the watch. And, that stuff really nobody else is doing, and especially at the price point,
But it's a lot more work for them behind the dial in terms of
exactly. And they're a small brand. I mean, they have only a couple watchmakers. Somebody's really hands-on with this watch and making it for you. They're just doing it in a much more economical way,
Yeah. And I think he's operated a scale where, like, again, you could probably contact the owner of the company and have a conversation with them. It's like that's the difference with brands like that.
Do you guys actually watch any YouTubers?
Not as much as we probably should. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that. You get kind of lost in what we're doing in the moment. Yeah. And then I try to catch up with things periodically. But I watched all the videos you made, you made about Windup when you did that, because that was really awesome. And then a few of your colleagues made videos as well. It's interesting. I honestly wasn't aware that there was like a YouTube specific community like a year ago. Now I know about it.
I like go down the YouTube rabbit hole a lot more than Zach does. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely like after the Windup video, I watched a bunch of your videos. It's just we've for a long time enjoyed the occasional Archie luxury video.
No, stop it.
That's always a good time.
I wanted to interview him, but we were all kind of scared to reach out.
Oh yeah, let me tell you that. Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from there.
But yeah, no, I think it's really cool just because it's just like it's very unpretentious, just like very practical, down to earth stuff. And like I was watching just yesterday, I was watching your video about the whole idea of like evolving as a collector and sort of like moving up the scale. And that's sort of almost the history of Mortar Wound to a certain extent. She's talking about like first you start with, maybe fashion brands, you sort of dip your toes, and it's like, I remember we were looking at Nixon's, way back when, and then, we moved into like maybe Soviet was the first watch I bought, and then we got Seiko 5s, and then you sort of move your way up, and it's like, I think, I think it's just like very practical conversations. It's, being in the industry, so to speak, quote unquote, as obnoxious as that sounds, but also like being in New York, where like the collectors, like we definitely have access and sort of friends with a lot of the higher end pretty ridiculous watch collections. And it's not most people, you know what I mean? That's not most watch collectors. I think most watch collectors are probably more like you and me and the other folks who are on YouTube. And so it's really interesting to sort of see those conversations, and it's a totally different take. So that's what I think is cool about the community, is just seeing people coming at it from a totally different, much more down to earth, like unpretentious perspective.
Have you been recognized by anybody when you're out and about? Because I definitely think at a minimum I would recognize your voice. Like if I was shopping somewhere and you were behind me asking for where, something was in a particular aisle, I'd be like, I hear that voice all the time. Like,
we don't, honestly, this is one of the first times we've really shown our faces for a prolonged amount of time on anything. It's just, it was never really the,
always the hands.
Yeah, the hands are there, and then so yeah, people don't know what I look like per se, but I have had people recognize my voice.
Absolutely, all day. I'd recognize your voice all day.
Yeah,
that probably sounds weird, but
I've had somebody recognize my hands too. That's a little weird.
That's more weird.
But yeah, the voice at least. I guess I'm glad it's distinct, hopefully not for like it's annoying. Like
Nobody knows what I look like. I'll keep it that way.
Well, not after this. At least some people.
It's all over.
When I think 3 websites that I'm going to look for information on, or definitely my starting points. I think Hodinkee, A Blog to Watch, and Worn and Wound. I mean, that's just those are. If I could show you my favorites bar, you know what I mean. So have you ever met up with any of those guys? Is there, do you ever touch base with each other, or?
Yeah, it's been a little while. I mean, Ariel, because he's in LA, don't see him that often. Usually you'll see him at an event of some kind. I went with him and a bunch of other people to like a Hamilton event a few years ago. That's really where I think I got to know him in person a little bit better. And then Ben from Hodinkee, it's been maybe a year, but we would occasionally meet up for drinks or whatever. I think just it's one of those things where everyone's so busy. Yeah. But there's definitely, I think we're all friendly, and I think we, are
so there's no crazy rivalry where they turn around and you're kind of taping their A Blog to Watch back. On their back.
Yeah, we all do something a little bit different, and I obviously can't speak for what everyone thinks of us or what they think of each other, but like, because we have focused on the niche we are in, we have always been different. And I mean, we're not really stepping on anyone's toes, and we don't copy anything. So if you went on Watchville or whatever on any given day that a big press release comes out, we're the only ones not talking about that press release, So we're if anything, we support them and they support us by all supporting the culture,
Yeah, and I think over time, the points of differentiation for everybody have become a lot clearer,
I would definitely really, really like to thank you guys for taking the time to chat and answer all the questions. Really, really appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us. And thanks for everything you do, and thanks for the video you did on Windup. And yeah, it's a pleasure. It's always fun to chat.
If you enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. That's it for this one. CG out.
CG out.
Really?